The gentleman from New York reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I was just reviewing some materials that showed that both the states that the gentlelady from Colorado and the gentleman from New York represent had non-citizen voting in the 18th, 19th, and in the case of Colorado, up to the 20th century. So I think, if they're talking about giving away the sacred right to vote, their states have done that before, and it's got a kind of interesting history to it. I mean, to me, it's basically irrelevant because it's not our decision to be making. It's up to the people of D.C., just like it's up to the voters in Colorado and it's up to the voters in New York. But the history of it is intriguing because when the country started, as I'm sure the gentlelady's aware, there were race qualifications for voting, there were gender qualifications for voting, and it was only through social struggle that those were removed. But at the beginning of the Republic, all that mattered was the property qualification, the wealth and property qualification for white men. And if you were a white man, regardless of your citizenship status, you had the right to vote. And that lasted basically up into the Civil War, but it became a bone of contention between the North and the South because the northern states were continuing to defend alien suffrage, and the southern states opposed it. And in fact, if you look at Article 1 of the Confederate Constitution, the very first thing it does, it says you must be a citizen of the Confederacy in order to vote there. They didn't want non-citizens voting. Why? Because the immigrants were overwhelmingly anti-slavery. And it was very clear in the debates in Congress about this that the southern states wanted to get rid of it, which is why the Confederacy banned it. After the Civil War, non-citizen voting spread around the country. But the point is, when we're talking about local non-citizen voting, who's going to vote in your school board or town council elections, that should be decided locally. And my colleagues who are the ones determined not to make the District of Columbia a state should be the first ones to say, if it's just a local government, let them decide who's going to vote on matters of garbage collection and who their teacher is going to be. The jurisdictions that have done this, like Los Angeles, have wanted to make sure that parents in local public schools get the right to vote, regardless of their citizenship status. Most of the non-citizens, of course, are lawful residents, people with green cards, permanent residents, and they want them to be engaged and involved. In any event, if my friends really support home rule and local self-determination, they will allow the people of Washington, D.C. to decide that. And with that, I'm going to yield 4 minutes to my